They didn't ask me to marry him. They told me. I was sitting at the long oak dining table in my parents' estate, a full plate of untouched roast in front of me, when my father dropped the news like it was just another matter of family business. Lily ran off, he said. The press doesn't know yet. The wedding is in 4 days. You'll take her place. I blinked, thinking I'd misheard. But my mother just sipped her wine like it was the most natural thing in the world to trade one daughter for another. And that's exactly what I was, an afterthought, a placeholder, the safe, dependable one they always kept in the wings in case Lily made a mess. Which she always did. But this time, she didn't just ruin a party or crash a car. She ran away from a marriage alliance between two of the wealthiest families in the city. And instead of canceling the wedding or calling off the deal, they turned to me, the quieter, duller sister, and expected me to fix it. To become Ethan Callahan's bride. The Ethan Callahan. Heir to the Callahan Group. One of the coldest, most calculating men I'd ever met. He was tall, flawless in a suit, and carried himself like the world owed him something. I'd met him twice before. Once at Lily's engagement party, where he barely looked at me, and once at a charity auction, where he asked if I was the assistant. I wasn't. I was the architect behind the entire event. But I just smiled and stepped aside. That was always my role. The invisible one. The reliable one. The one who didn't make waves. So of course, I said yes. Not because I wanted to. Not because I dreamed of marrying Ethan Callahan. But because I was tired of being forgotten. Tired of letting Lily's choices define my life. If I was going to be the backup bride, I would play the role, but on my terms. I would walk down that aisle. I would marry the man who didn't want me. And I would make sure he never saw me the same way again. The day before the wedding, I stood in the bridal suite alone, staring at the dress that was made for someone else. It was the kind of gown Lily loved, dramatic, glittering, meant to catch cameras and dazzle crowds. It didn't suit me. I had the seamstress strip it down. Remove the layers of lace. Cut the train. Simplify it. When I stepped into the mirror, it was still Lily's dress. But now it was mine. I arrived at the ceremony 5 minutes late, on purpose. Let them talk. Let the guests whisper. Let Ethan wait. When I finally walked toward him, he didn't smile. His jaw clenched. His eyes flicked up and down like he was still adjusting to the idea that I wasn't the sister he'd signed up for. Emma, he said flatly, when I reached the altar. Ethan, I replied. That was all. The vows were scripted. The kiss was brief. The applause was strained. And the reception was the most awkward gathering of the elite I'd ever attended. People didn't know whether to congratulate me or offer condolences. One woman actually patted my shoulder and said, "Brave girl." Brave? For what, agreeing to be a second choice? Or pretending it didn't hurt? Ethan barely looked at me the entire evening. He made a toast about honor and duty and thanked both families for their trust. Not once did he mention me by name. Later that night, in the cold penthouse he called home, he walked into the room we now shared and handed me a file. These are the upcoming events we'll attend as a couple, he said. Public appearances. Press expectations. You'll find the dress codes and guest lists in the last section. I took the file without a word. This isn't personal, he added. We both know how this happened. So let's not pretend. I looked up at him. You think I'm pretending? Aren't you, he said. You said yes. Fast. I laughed, but it wasn't out of humor. You really think I wanted this? Didn't you? His tone was sharper now. Girls like you don't get opportunities like this twice. I stared at him, then turned away. He didn't see the fire in my eyes. He wasn't looking closely enough. Not yet. But he would. One day soon, he'd realize that girls like me don't stay invisible forever. That being the backup bride doesn't mean being the backup forever. I didn't plan on falling for Ethan. And I was sure he didn't plan on falling for me. But he would. That's the part no one expected. Especially not him. The first time Ethan's mother looked at me, she smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. You clean up well, she said lightly, sipping her champagne. I wasn't sure you'd pull it off. We were at a private brunch, 3 days after the wedding. A small gathering to celebrate the union, though everyone in the room was more interested in dissecting Lily's disappearance than welcoming me into the family. I sat perfectly still, hands folded, posture flawless. I wore a navy dress that whispered elegance, not desperation. I smiled just enough. I said little. And I listened. Ethan stayed mostly silent too, answering questions with one-word replies, occasionally checking his watch. His mother carried the conversation with the skill of a politician. But underneath her warm facade was ice. I recognized it. I'd grown up with it. My own mother had taught me to smile through insults and lace cruelty with compliments. So when Ethan's mother said, "Of course, we all assumed Lily would be the one," I simply nodded. "So did I said smoothly. "But here we are." Her smile faltered for a breath. I'd landed a hit. Later that day, I explored the penthouse alone. It was spacious, cold, full of dark steel and glass, and not a single personal photo. It didn't feel like a home. It felt like a showroom. The bedroom was neatly divided. His side was full of custom suits and pristine order. Mine was empty, save for a closet I hadn't filled. I stood in front of it and made a decision. If I was going to live here, I'd leave a mark. The next day, I hired an interior stylist. Not to redecorate, just to add touches. A velvet reading chair. A crystal tray for perfume. Framed architectural prints I'd collected during school. I didn't ask for permission. I didn't need it. Ethan noticed. I caught him pausing at the door one evening, glancing around like something was off. "You moved things," he said. "I made it livable." He raised an eyebrow. "This isn't a hotel. It's a home." "To you, maybe," I said. "To me, it's a contract." His eyes narrowed slightly. I was starting to chip at the calm. That same week, I accompanied him to a board meeting. I wore a sleek black dress, pulled my hair into a low twist, and sat beside him without speaking. When one of the older executives cracked a joke about runaway brides, I didn't flinch. I just turned to him and said, "I'm sure your wife regrets returning every day." The room fell silent. Ethan looked at me. For the first time, really looked. And something shifted. He didn't correct me. He didn't roll his eyes. He just moved his hand slightly on the table, letting it brush against mine for half a second. A test. That night, we didn't speak much. But he poured me a drink. Sat across from me on the balcony. Watched the skyline in silence. And I let him. 2 weeks passed. I kept learning. Not just about Ethan, but about the world he ruled. I studied his meetings, watched how he handled negotiations. Quietly, I started anticipating things. I handed him files before he asked. Prepped him on clients I knew he hadn't read up on. People started noticing. "You've improved," one of the board members said to him. "Your team's tighter. Your timing's sharper." He didn't credit me. Of course not. But he glanced at me as the man walked away. A flicker of something, respect? Maybe. The press started spinning a new story. From backup bride to business asset. They called me the unexpected queen. A few still mocked. But fewer each day. One morning, Ethan found me in the kitchen, reviewing documents over coffee. He leaned against the counter, arms folded. "You're not what I expected," he said. "You either," I replied. "You really hated me, didn't you?" "I didn't think you existed enough to hate," I said, looking up. He gave a low laugh. "Fair." A pause. "But you're making them all nervous now." "Should they be?" "You tell me." We locked eyes. For a moment, I almost smiled. But I didn't. Not yet. Not until I was sure he meant it. Not until he understood that I hadn't married him to be saved. I married him to stop being invisible. And now, everyone could see me. Including him. The invitations arrived in thick cream envelopes, sealed with wax. Ethan's annual charity gala was approaching, and this year, all eyes were on us. Not him. Us. The rebranded couple. The unlikely match. The press was already spinning headlines like From Second Choice to Power Couple, and Emma Callahan. The ice bride who outsmarted them all. Ethan pretended not to care, but I saw the way he read every article, every headline, lips pressed into a tight line. I saw how it bothered him that I was getting more attention than him, for once. I didn't mind. I let them talk. I let them wonder if I had planned it all. If I had stolen the wedding. Stolen the husband. Stolen the spotlight. Because the truth was, I had done none of those things. I just refused to disappear. On the night of the gala, I wore a dress that Lily would have never dared to wear. Sleek. Structured. Backless. I didn't sparkle, I gleamed. When I walked in beside Ethan, the room quieted for a beat. Then the cameras flashed. People whispered. I caught someone muttering, "Is that really Emma?" And Ethan, beside me, said low under his breath, "They're finally seeing what I missed." I looked at him. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't performing. He was just watching me. Not like a husband watching a wife, but like a man trying to figure out when he stopped being in control. We moved through the crowd like magnets, unattached but always drawn to each other. At one point, I stepped away to speak with a major donor. I charmed him, made him laugh, got a promise for a 6-figure contribution. When I returned to Ethan's side, he said, "You didn't tell me you had political instincts." "You never asked what I had," I said. "You only assumed what I didn't." He didn't argue. That night, when we returned to the penthouse, Ethan didn't go to his office like usual. He followed me to the bedroom. Watched me take off my earrings, one by one. "I owe you an apology," he said. I paused. "For what?" "For not choosing you sooner." I turned to face him. "You didn't choose me at all. You were handed me." "And now?" he asked. "Would you still take the deal if it was offered again?" He stepped closer. "Yes," he said simply. "This time, I'd ask you myself." I looked at him, trying to read his face. But I'd learned my lesson. Words were easy. Especially from men like Ethan. The real test was coming. Because the next day, Lily returned. She walked into the Callahan building like she still owned the air, in a silk dress and heels sharp enough to cut glass. Her smile was sweeter than sugar and twice as fake. "Darling sister," she said as if nothing had happened. "You've done such a good job holding things together. But I think it's time we restore things properly, don't you think?" I said nothing. Just stared at her like I was looking at a ghost. She turned to Ethan, confident. "I'm back," she said. "I made a mistake. But I'm ready to make it right. Let's fix this." Ethan's expression didn't move. But I saw his hands tighten slightly at his sides. "There's nothing to fix," he said. Lily blinked. "Ethan, you left. You humiliated both families. You thought we'd wait around. She was never supposed to be your wife," she snapped. "And yet," Ethan said, "she's the one who stayed." Lily turned to me, her eyes sharp. "What did you do to him?" "Nothing," I said calmly. "He just finally opened his eyes." The boardroom incident that followed was brutal. Lily tried to force her way back into family decisions, citing past deals and shared ventures. But Ethan shut her down, document by document, while I sat beside him, quiet and composed, correcting facts when needed. By the end of the meeting, she looked like someone who had misread the script. Who had walked back into a game that had already been played and lost. That night, Ethan came to me again. Not with apologies. But with admiration. "She never scared you," he said. "She used to scare everyone." "She never saw me as competition," I said. "That was her mistake." "Mine too," he murmured. He touched my hand. And this time, I let him. Not because I'd forgiven him. But because he finally saw me as someone worth choosing. Not a backup. Not a placeholder. A partner. And for now, that was enough. The shift didn't happen all at once. It was slow. Subtle. A glance held too long. A silence that felt charged instead of awkward. Ethan began coming home earlier. He asked for my opinion on things that had nothing to do with the family. Not just about upcoming events or how we should present ourselves, but about business decisions. Strategic moves. Even personal matters. "Do you think I should buy the Baxter shares?" he asked one evening over dinner. I looked up from my glass. "Do you want control or influence?" He blinked, surprised by the question. "Control." "Then don't buy them. Steal their loyalty instead. Make Baxter irrelevant before you make him rich." He stared at me for a long time. "I didn't know you could be ruthless." I met his gaze. "You never asked what I could be." After that, things changed. Ethan stopped treating me like a temporary fix. He stopped holding me at a distance. One night, he canceled a dinner with shareholders to stay home with me. We sat on the floor of the living room, eating takeout, barefoot, laughing about a terrible reality show I forced him to watch. He wasn't the cold, untouchable man from our wedding. He was softer. Still sharp. But reachable. And I hated how much I liked it. Because it made me forget, just for a moment, that I was never meant to be his wife. One afternoon, while I was reviewing blueprints for a community project I'd quietly taken over, Ethan walked in and stood behind me. "You could run a company," he said. "You already do, in your own way." "I've thought about it," I admitted. But no one would take me seriously. They still see me as the backup bride. He crouched beside me, picked up one of the plans. Then let's change that. That night, he introduced me at a major event as the sharpest mind I've ever worked with. People clapped. Smiled. But I saw the shock behind their eyes. Because they'd written me off the moment I stepped into Lily's shoes. They never expected me to wear them better. We became a team after that. Silent, powerful. I handled charity ventures and PR. He handled mergers and legal warfare. Together, we rewrote the narrative. People started using our names together in headlines, Emma and Ethan Callahan. And for a moment, I let myself believe it wasn't all pretend. Until I found the letter. It was hidden in Ethan's study, tucked inside a file from months ago. A letter Lily had sent him before the wedding. In it, she promised she'd come back. Begged him not to marry me. Said he didn't have to do it. That he could stall. Wait. And his reply wasn't there. But the fact that the letter was kept, not thrown away, not burned, that was enough. I confronted him that evening. Held the letter in my hand. Did you want her back? Ethan's jaw tightened. It doesn't matter now. It matters to me. He stepped closer. I kept it because I didn't know what I felt. I was angry. I didn't want to be abandoned. And I didn't want to admit that I had started seeing you differently. When? I asked. When did I stop being your backup? The moment you stopped caring if I noticed you, he said quietly. That's when I started seeing you. I didn't know whether to believe him. My heart wanted to. But my mind remembered the pity. The whispers. The way he once called me the safer option. Do you regret marrying me? I asked. Every day I didn't try to deserve you, he said. I turned away, unsure of what to do with the ache building in my chest. I didn't need his guilt. I didn't need his regret. I needed truth. And the truth was, I had fallen for a man who never planned to choose me. But now that he had, I wasn't sure if I could believe it wasn't out of guilt or convenience. The next morning, I received a message from Lily. One line. Meet me. Alone. I agreed. She chose a quiet cafe downtown. When I arrived, she was already seated, sunglasses on, red lips curled into a smirk. So, she said, how's married life with my leftovers? I sat down calmly. You abandoned him. Please, she scoffed. I was just giving him space to realize what he lost. You were a test. A placeholder. You played your part well. I leaned in. You still think this is about him? It never was. She blinked. What? I didn't marry him to win him. I married him to stop being your shadow. And now I'm not just his wife. I'm the woman you'll never be able to erase. Her smile slipped. I stood and left before she could recover. As I walked back to the car, I realized something had shifted inside me. I didn't care if Ethan loved me. I didn't need his validation. I had taken a role meant to humiliate me and turned it into power. And if he wanted me now, it was because I no longer needed him to. The scandal came a week later. An anonymous tip leaked to a popular blog, one known for devouring high society secrets. The headline read, Was the backup bride always the plan? The article suggested that I had manipulated the entire situation. That I had orchestrated Lily's disappearance. That I'd positioned myself to marry Ethan from the start. It cited unnamed sources, pulled old photos of me from events I'd barely attended, painted me as a cunning social climber who'd used her own sister's downfall to rise. I should have expected it. I'd risen too far, too fast, and there were too many people invested in seeing me fall. Ethan found me in the reading room that morning, the tablet in his hand, jaw tight. You didn't tell me this was coming, he said. I didn't know it was, I replied. But I'm not surprised. He stared at me for a long time. Did you? Did I what? Want this from the start? My heart twisted. Are you asking if I planned to marry you, or if I planned to be worth your name once I did? He didn't answer. That silence told me everything. He still doubted me. Still wasn't sure if I was the girl who waited in the shadows or the woman who stepped into power. That night, I stayed late at my office. I didn't go home. I didn't answer his calls. I needed space. To think, to breathe, to remind myself that I hadn't built my worth on his opinion. But when I finally returned the next morning, something had changed. The headlines were different. Ethan had made a statement, publicly, definitively. Emma Callahan is not my second choice. She is my equal partner. Anyone who suggests otherwise is either threatened or misinformed. He didn't just defend me. He aligned himself with me. The media pivoted, unsure how to respond. But I knew exactly who had planted the original article. Lily. She'd been quiet since our last meeting, but that silence had been a warning. She wasn't done. The final blow came at a private investor summit. Ethan and I arrived together, unified, polished. But just as we were about to take our seats, the lights dimmed, and a new presentation began playing. Unscheduled. Unapproved. It was a montage of old footage. Me in the background of events, glancing toward Ethan, moments twisted to suggest obsession. Then a voiceover, an actor mimicking Ethan, saying things he never said. It was a full-blown smear campaign, meant to humiliate me. To make me look like a stalker. The room went silent. I stood frozen. But Ethan didn't. He walked to the stage, took the mic, and with every camera still rolling, said, "Enough." He didn't defend me this time. He attacked. This was orchestrated by someone who cannot accept that I moved on. That I found strength, intelligence, and loyalty in someone they always underestimated. He looked right at me. I married Emma because she is everything I never knew I needed. And if you can't see that, it says more about you than her. The crowd erupted. Some in applause. Some in shock. I stood still, watching him claim me not out of obligation, not out of guilt, but out of something that looked dangerously close to love. After the summit, Lily was cut off. The families distanced themselves from her. Sponsors dropped her brand. Whispers swirled about mental instability, desperation, manipulation. She'd tried to bury me in rumors, and buried herself instead. But I didn't gloat. I didn't smile. I just went home. Took off my heels. Sat on the edge of the bed and let the silence settle. Ethan came in a few minutes later. "You were incredible," he said. I said nothing, I replied. "You didn't need to," he said. Everyone saw the truth. He knelt in front of me. "Emma, I can't change how we started. But I want to choose you now. Not because I have to. Because I want to. Because I can't imagine this life without you in it." I looked down at him. What if I say no? Then I'll spend the rest of my life trying to earn a yes. And for once, I believed him. Not because he said the right words. But because I no longer needed them to feel whole. I'd already rewritten the story they tried to trap me in. I wasn't the backup bride. I was the woman he would choose every single time, even if it took him too long to realize it. The air at the Callahan estate felt different that evening. Lighter. As if the weight that had settled over our marriage from day one had finally lifted. Ethan stood beside me at the balcony, sleeves rolled to his forearms, tie discarded, looking less like the icy businessman everyone knew and more like a man learning how to breathe again. We didn't speak for a while. The silence was comfortable now. Safe. But there was still one thread left to pull, one final piece of the story I needed to lay bare. "Why did you agree to marry me?" I asked. "Before everything. Before you saw me." Ethan glanced at me, then looked away. "Because I didn't want to be the failure in the family. Lily leaving, it was a scandal. My father said we'd look weak. He offered alternatives. But none of them made sense. And then your name came up. Your father said you'd do it. Said you were loyal." "Loyal," I repeated softly. "Not smart. Not capable. Just obedient." He flinched slightly. "I didn't know you back then." "You didn't want to," I said. "You married me like I was a solution. Not a person." Ethan turned to face me. "I know that now. I know I was blind. But I see you now, Emma. All of you. The fire, the brilliance, the strength. I see what Lily never did. What I was too arrogant to notice." I looked at him, searching for insincerity, but I didn't find any. The man in front of me wasn't the one who had stood stiffly beside me at the altar, lips tight, eyes distant. This man had fought for me. Defended me. Chosen me. Slowly. But surely. I didn't forgive him all at once. I didn't melt into his arms or confess some grand love. But I reached for his hand. Let my fingers intertwine with his. That was enough, for now. The next few weeks blurred into motion. Press requests flooded in. Brands wanted to partner with us. Articles changed tone. Emma Callahan, from shadow to powerhouse. How the backup bride became the real deal. But I stayed quiet. I didn't give interviews. I didn't pose for magazine covers. I let them write what they wanted, knowing the truth was already louder than any headline. Meanwhile, Ethan started including me in everything. Not as a formality, but as a necessity. He said he couldn't make certain calls without my insight. That I brought balance to his edge. We traveled to Dubai for a tech summit. Paris for a philanthropy gala. At every event, people asked about our story. Wanted to know how we worked so well together. Ethan's answer was always the same. I married up. And every time he said it, I saw the sincerity in his eyes. The admiration. The quiet reverence. But the most telling moment came during a dinner with his father. The man had never liked me. He'd made it clear from the beginning that I was a downgrade. But that evening, as we sat across from each other over wine and steak, he finally said, "You built something remarkable here. You've made him better." Ethan looked at me, eyes soft. She made herself better. I'm just trying to keep up. After dinner, as we walked out into the night air, I turned to Ethan. Did you mean that? Every word. I studied him. Even if Lily had stayed, this would have happened eventually. Yes, he said firmly. But I'm grateful she left. Because I would have missed the best thing that ever happened to me. I nodded, unsure if I was ready to believe that fully. But his actions kept matching his words. That mattered more than promises. A month later, I received an offer, an opportunity to launch my own foundation under the Callahan umbrella. Total independence. Total creative control. Ethan had pulled strings quietly, made it possible, but never mentioned it. He didn't want credit. He just wanted to give me space to shine. When the announcement went public, the media spun 1,000 narratives. Callahan wife strikes out on her own. Power couple or quiet divorce? But Ethan only said one thing in his statement: I married a queen. It was only a matter of time before she built her own kingdom. And that was when I knew. He didn't love me because I needed him. He loved me because I didn't. I stood on the rooftop of our building that night, watching the city pulse below. My city. My empire. My story. I hadn't just survived being the backup bride. I'd rewritten what it meant. I was no longer in Lily's shadow. No longer the silent daughter. No longer the girl who waited to be chosen. I was Emma Callahan. The woman who was underestimated by everyone, and ended up with everything. Including the man who now knew better than anyone that I was never second best. The morning of the foundation's official launch, I stood in front of a packed hall filled with journalists, business leaders, and members of both our families. The Callahan crest gleamed on the banners behind me, but today wasn't about them. It was about me. About the legacy I was building with my own hands. I wore a midnight blue suit tailored to power, not beauty. My hair was pinned high, my expression composed. As the cameras flashed, I didn't flinch. I took the podium, cleared my throat, and began. When I stood at my wedding, I wasn't supposed to be there. I wasn't the first choice. Or the second. I was the safe one. The reliable one. The easy fix. But I didn't come here to be remembered as a solution to someone else's problem. I came here to become a problem for anyone who underestimated me. The room held its breath. Ethan, seated in the front row, watched me with something between pride and awe. Today, the Callahan Foundation begins a new chapter, I continued. One that prioritizes not just image, but impact. One that invests in women like me, girls who were told to wait their turn, who were called quiet, soft, forgettable. We are not forgettable. We are unstoppable. Thunderous applause followed. My team swarmed me after the speech, reporters shouted questions, and investors offered handshakes. But I only looked at one person. Ethan stood back, smiling. Not stepping in. Not taking credit. Just watching. After the event, we rode in silence, the tension between us no longer heavy but charged. When we arrived home, he reached for my hand. You were brilliant, he said. You've always been brilliant. I just didn't see it. You weren't looking, I said simply. I'm looking now. We stopped by the glass wall of our living room, the city lights flickering below us. Do you still feel like a backup? He asked. I turned to face him. Not anymore. He nodded slowly. Because you never were. I just didn't know how to deserve you. For the first time, I didn't doubt his words. He had stood by me through the worst. Fought beside me when it mattered. And never once asked me to be smaller. You're not the man I married, I said. Good, he replied. I don't ever want to be him again. In the months that followed, the Callahan Foundation soared. We funded tech programs for girls, mentorship networks for young entrepreneurs, and incubators for female-led startups. I traveled the country giving talks, advising boards, and meeting women who reminded me of myself. Not because they were backup options, but because they were about to become the main event. Lily vanished from the public eye. Rumors whispered of rehab, of failed business deals, of a new engagement that never made it to the altar. I didn't follow her story. I had my own to write. Our marriage changed, too. We stopped sleeping in separate rooms. We started eating together every night, even if it was just takeout on the couch. Ethan learned how to cook one dish, spaghetti, and made it every Friday without fail. He still argued in meetings, still worked late, still kept secrets sometimes. But he also listened now. Shared things. Trusted me. And I trusted him. One night, while walking home from a late dinner, he stopped under the city lights and turned to me. "I was wrong about everything," he said. "About you. About us. About what makes a strong partner." "What changed?" I asked. He smiled. "You did. And then I did. Because of you." He took a small box from his coat pocket. Opened it. Inside was a ring, not flashy, not expensive, but familiar. The one I'd admired once in a window years ago and never mentioned again. "I know we're already married," he said. "But this time I want to ask. Will you marry me? For real. No contracts. No family pressure. Just you and me." I stared at the ring. Then at him. And for the first time since our wedding, I felt chosen. Not by default. Not by accident. But fully, truly, finally. I nodded. Yes. The second wedding wasn't public. It wasn't even a wedding. Just us on the rooftop, in front of the stars, with no photographers, no press, no expectations. He slipped the ring on my finger and kissed me like he'd spent a lifetime waiting to. And maybe he had. Maybe we both had. For something real. Something earned. Something we built, brick by brick, scar by scar. I was the backup bride. That was how it started. But in the end, I wasn't the woman who waited to be chosen. I was the woman he chose when it mattered most. And this time, I knew I would never be forgotten again. Our second wedding stayed a secret for weeks. There were no announcements, no press releases, no headlines to chase. It was just ours, quiet, intentional, and finally real. For the first time in my life, I wasn't living in someone else's story. I wasn't reacting to chaos or fixing a mess someone else made. I was building, creating, choosing. I moved my things fully into the master bedroom without ceremony. Ethan didn't say anything. He just shifted over to make more space and ordered a new dresser. I started signing emails as Emma Callahan without flinching. People stopped calling me the backup. They started calling me a powerhouse. The woman who'd turned a scandal into a brand. The woman who'd taken her sister's discarded seat and turned it into a throne. And then the invitation arrived. A gold-trimmed envelope with embossed lettering. Lily was getting married. Again. This time to a shipping heir with a bad reputation and a bigger trust fund. And she had invited me. Not as family. As a symbol. Proof she wasn't afraid. Proof she was still ahead. I left the envelope on the counter for days. Ethan never asked about it. He didn't need to. On the morning of her wedding, I got dressed in black silk, pinned my hair into a clean chignon, and walked into the church like I'd never been second to anyone. The ceremony was extravagant, almost absurd. Flowers hung from the ceiling. A string quartet played a moody rendition of a pop song. Lily stood at the altar beaming like she'd won. I took a seat near the back and waited. During the reception, someone announced my arrival over the mic. I didn't flinch. I walked into the ballroom with my shoulders back and my name echoing behind me. Emma Callahan. The woman Lily had once tried to erase. The whisper started immediately. People nudged each other. Cameras turned. But I didn't come to make a scene. I came to end one. Lily found me near the champagne tower. Her smile was tight. "You came," she said. "Didn't expect you to be brave enough." "Brave?" I raised a brow. "I've walked through fire. This is just noise." "You think you've won," she said quietly. "But you'll always be the second wife. The backup. The replacement." I smiled. "Funny. I don't feel like one." I stepped closer. "You had everything. Beauty. Power. A man who would have moved heaven for you. And you threw it away because you thought you could always come back." Her eyes flickered. And you think he loves you more than he ever loved me? He loves me better, I said. Because I never made him choose. I just became someone worth choosing. She stared at me, stunned. For once, words failed her. I turned and walked away without another glance. That was the last time I saw Lily. Her marriage lasted 7 months. Her business quietly collapsed. She left the country soon after, a name mentioned only in scandal columns and old society pages. Meanwhile, I kept rising. The Callahan Foundation became one of the most respected philanthropic entities in the country. I launched a mentorship program in my name. I was asked to give a commencement speech at the university that once ignored me. My voice became louder. My presence undeniable. Ethan stood beside me through it all. Sometimes in the background, sometimes front and center. But always as my equal. He never asked me to shrink. Never asked me to forgive what couldn't be undone. He just kept showing up. Choosing me again and again. One evening, we stood on a stage accepting an award together. I looked at him, at the man who once saw me as a placeholder, and saw only clarity. Growth. Gratitude. Afterward, as we walked off stage, he leaned close. Do you ever miss who we used to be? He asked. I thought about it. About the girl who walked down the aisle in another woman's dress. The man who didn't look at her until it was almost too late. No, I said. Because I love who we are now. And I meant it. Not because it was perfect. But because it was earned. I was never meant to be the bride. Never meant to be the one he wanted. But I became the woman he couldn't live without. The one who took rejection and turned it into rain. And in the end, I wasn't the backup bride. I was the one he chose when everything else fell away. And I chose myself first. That was the difference. That was the victory.